Live. So I want to start out by introducing myself. My name is Nikki Caboose. I'm the VP of Development for Palm Beach Tech. And we are live this morning on LinkedIn and also on Facebook. So for anybody that's watching there, if you do want to comment, ask questions, please feel free to do so. And we will have somebody watching there to make sure that we get your questions to the speakers. And I'm going to go really quickly and share my screen here. Let's see. Let me know if you guys can see this. All right, to do a little brief intro. Oops, sorry. Present button. There we go. All right. So this morning we are talking about tech in the southeast of the United States, and we have Joe Russo, our CEO of South Florida Tech, aka Palm Beach Tech, Waymond Jackson, the chair of the board and at TechBirmingham, Larry Williams, the CEO of the Technology Association of Georgia, and Brian Moyer, the CEO of Greater Nashville Technology Council. And we did actually add last minute here. We've got Dion that's also from TechBirmingham. So he was able to join us. So I'm glad that we could get him on here this morning. Next screen. So our sponsor for this community coffee this morning is the South Florida Business and Wealth magazine. And just to give everybody a little brief overview of our organization, we are building South Florida into a tech hub. And a little bit about us is we've got currently about 200 corporate members. We're building a tech hub, so that obviously includes the colleges, the universities, the corporate companies here, trying to attract talent, building the workforce and development here in our local area, and also making sure that we, as a tech community, that we're very inclusive of everybody, which brings us to our community creed, that we are wholeheartedly committed to building a welcoming, collaborative, inclusive community for all. We put inclusivity first, engage with others, and are considerate to all, and do not sell to people. So here's a little bit about some of our local members. We've got everybody from PGA, Office Depot, Digital Resource. So we've got startups like Boca Code, all the way to our much larger ones like FPL and Office Depot. And a little bit about some of our events for those of you that are watching or not familiar with us is we have Tech Talks Monday nights. We've got our community coffees like this morning. Each Wednesday, we have different podcasts where we highlight different business and startup tech leaders. We've got Friday workshops, and then we'll also have different annual or quarterly events as well. Really quickly, because this is coming up this weekend, we actually have our, yes, I know it's Todd, I'm excited about this one too. We've been working on this for a while, is our Coding for Good hackathon. It's this weekend, the 23rd through 25th. And we're actually working with a couple local nonprofits, Feeding South Florida and Gift of Life Bone Marrow Registry as well. Membership, just a little bit about the membership is have everything from a customized member portal, different speaking opportunities, exclusive peer groups. There's a lot of different benefits included in our membership, but of course you can go to palmbeachtech.org and take a look there. There is a Join Us Today tab. And if you'd like to be added on to our e-newsletters, very simply, you can actually just text us at 561-250-7206, and we'll make sure to add you to those. And last but not least, for anybody that's looking for jobs, of course, we know there's a ton of people looking for jobs right now, so we have a resume distributor on the website. So if you go in and drop your resume there, it'll actually be sent to our entire list of hiring companies that are part of our organization. And let me stop sharing my screen and we can get to the good stuff. Let's see. All right, so I would like to start by just having each of the speakers this morning just tell us a little bit about yourself, name, which organization you're from, and a little bit about that organization, and then we'll go right into the Q&A. I'm just going to start from whoever's on my screen first here. I've got Brian first.
Morning, I'm Brian Moyer, President and CEO of the Greater Nashville Technology Council. We're a very similar organization to what you just heard about. We've been around for about 21 years here, member-based trade association, involved in many of the same activities for those of you that are joining us from Florida that the South Florida and Palm Beach Tech Association is involved with. I think for the purpose of this morning's conversation, what we really want to emphasize is the fact that none of us represent California. None of us represent New York. We represent an alternative to some of these other big markets, and that's really what I'm looking forward to focusing on this morning.
Very good. Thank you, Brian. And now I've got next on my screen, I actually have Dion.
Oh, fantastic. Dion Gordon, President and CEO of TechBirmingham. Again, just to kind of echo Brian, similar organization. We like to tip our hat to Birmingham's moniker, the Magic City. So we want to help our local organizations and our regional organizations create magic in their own way. And so that really looks like us promoting and positioning Birmingham as an emerging tech hub. I make no bones about it. We have a unique challenge in that we are actually in Alabama. And usually the first thing that people think about is not progress or innovation. And so we have to kind of do a good job of making sure that we, in essence, decouple and that we position Birmingham as a unique alternative, one that has a high quality of life, one that is inviting to all. And then it's also about growing the local ecosystem. So we have some unique initiatives around that. And then just serving as that connective tissue. And again, piggybacking off of Brian's remarks, figuring out where we can collaborate in the Southeast to make sure that we're recognizing our unique strengths and bringing that together in a way that really elevates the entire region. So looking forward to it.
Very good. Thank you so much, Dion. I've got next on my screen, Larry.
Good morning. Thank you, Nikki. Larry Williams, CEO of the Technology Association of Georgia. I'm mostly recognized as TAG. Delighted to be here. We are a professional association of technologists and, as I say, technology enthusiasts, people that are really interested in innovation, the innovation economy. Gang, I will say that, I feel passionately that the Southeast has earned itself at the table. We are a technology hub. We're a global hub of innovation. We drive innovation in many, many different ways. From the perspective of Georgia and Atlanta, I use the tagline that Georgia is where technology meets the real world. And what I mean by that is we don't always have the coolest app or the notice or the next little gadget, but we have more companies using technology driving revenue than anywhere else. And it's with things like cybersecurity, fintech, digital health. And I can go down the laundry list of where we're leading in AI, machine learning, data science, and analytics. So it's often the things that are behind the curtain, so to speak. But we've earned our space at the table, and I think it's something that we can all be proud of. So delighted to be here with my colleagues. Joseph, thank you for your leadership in pulling this together, and Nikki. And I'm delighted to be with all of you and looking forward to the conversation.
Of course, thank you so much, Larry. And you were actually the one that gave us the idea to put this all together. So thank you for that. And last but not least, Waymond.
Hey, thanks, Nikki. I am glad to participate. I feel like I've done my service duty for the month now because I was able to fill in and do what a board chair should do when the CEO and president was unable to. But happy to represent for TechBirmingham. I think Dion did a great job of explaining what the organization is and does. One of the unique things that I think I've seen not only from TechBirmingham, but from organizations that are represented on this call is I think the emergence of organizations like TechBirmingham as intermediaries that play a key role now in economic development opportunities and efforts, especially as it relates to workforce development and moving the community forward, which is something that TechBirmingham is really focused on doing. So glad to be a part. And any other questions, I'm going to let Dion do his job and what he does so well. So thanks.
Thank you so much, Waymond.
Nikki, if I could quickly interject, I'll be remiss if I did not recognize what Waymond just mentioned in terms of what we do with economic development, workforce development. So some of you all know the project that we were able to do with Apple that is now its own standalone organization called the Education Farm, Ed Farm for short. And our board chair is the CEO of that new initiative. So appreciate you, sir.
Oh,
Thanks.
that's wonderful. Yeah, don't sell yourself short there, Waymond. Thank you for adding that, Dion. All right, so I want to get right into the questions this morning. The first one, of course, is I hear we've got people that are much younger in the tech scene, also in organizations that have been around for quite a while. So I'm curious, what is the first step in creating a tech hub, and how have you guys been able to execute this? And this question is for anybody on the panel.
So, hey, everyone, this is Joe Russo here. I just wanted to, throw out a thanks for everyone for joining us, and of course, kind of take the first stab at the question here of really what we've done over the last 5 years of our organization's existence, and really, in this past year, it's really gone to the next level thanks to Nikki and her leadership within our organization as well. But there was a book I read probably 6 years ago called Startup Communities, which was written by Brad Feld, who looked at and analyzed the Boulder startup and technology ecosystem going back 10, 15 years, and really how it developed into this really well-known startup community around the world. And that was actually just in Boulder. Oh, and
I threw him off. I put up a copy of his second book, and Joe was just overcome with joy.
He froze up with, he was so choked up.
Yeah, looks like he might have gotten kicked off there. I don't know.
Joe, you're frozen, man.
Does anybody want to take that question in the meantime until we can get Joe back?
Well, I'll jump in. I think one of the major drivers is really about connectivity. It's about connecting the innovation ecosystem that you have in your community, and ever how you define your community as a metropolitan, greater metropolitan, statewide effort, and then really start to build out what you have and then the assets. As we look at the ecosystem in Georgia, it is about large enterprise, medium growth enterprise, and then it is about the startups and the entrepreneurs, but it's also about workforce and education, including STEM education, as well as higher education and technical colleges. It's about the capital that people need to invest. It's the for-profits, it's the nonprofits, and it's government, and it's the policies that really make sure that we enable it. So in Georgia, we're proud that for 7 years in a row, from an economic development point of view, 7 years in a row, we've been the best place to do business by, according to Site Selection Magazine. That's quite an accomplishment for any state, but it is about those good policies that enable people to do business, whether they're, a large existing Fortune 500 all the way up. But it's that connectivity of the people that creates communities. In fact, we have 23 societies. I think a society that's like our special interest group or committees, whatever you want to call them, but a society really is a community, and that's what we focus on, building those different communities throughout our ecosystem. But then it's about how do you connect them? Whenever you connect them, that becomes powerful. So I think that's the beginning of an innovation. And then once you have the connectivity, you can start to set goals and grow, whether it be workforce, whether it be economic development, professional growth. All of these things flow out of it.
Yeah, I'll tag off of that, Larry, and really kind of echo a lot of what you were just saying. We went through an exercise at the beginning of this year. Seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? So first day back in the office at the beginning of every year, I have a sit down with each of my team members. Just, what are you most proud of? Are we making an impact? And what I heard over and over and over in a variety of different ways was what they were most proud of is the collaboration and the community. Community just kept coming back up to Larry's point, and not just community, but the collaborative nature of the community and the fact that it's so inclusive. And by inclusive, I'm not necessarily just limiting that to race or gender, but we try to treat large companies and small companies and individuals the same and provide programming and opportunity for all. We followed that with an exercise to kind of revamp our vision, values and mission statement. And then we went to the full board. We had a strategic retreat. The very same concepts came coming out of this. We redid our vision statement to create the premier collaborative and inclusive tech community in America with the vision of leading into the world that is becoming. So I was sharing this last week with a local reporter, and he said, I don't understand. To what end? You talk about this collaboration. Well, you know, what's so important about that? And I said, it's all about the economy, stupid. Referring to the Clinton remark, not calling him stupid, but what we see over and over again as a result of this community that we've built is when companies come in to visit, they speak to people in different parts of the community, and they hear the same messaging. They pick up on this collaboration that exists. They pick up on the fact that people are excited about what's going on. And as a result of that, they want to be a part of it. So I think building the community is key and is a priority to us. And honestly, the things that make Nashville attractive, a lot of that has to do with Southern values. We all share those same values. You know, it's just a different mindset in the South, in the Southeast, than it is in the North and in California. And I think that's something that we all share.
You know, one thing I'll add to that is, and I don't really know how you quite capture this, but at the risk of being redundant, you have to capture lightning in the bottle. I think, at least in Birmingham's case, there are moments where it seems like everything is in alignment, and you really have to strike while the iron is hot. And you know, Birmingham's rise on this, you know, technology scene is fairly nascent, and it seems like so much has happened within the past 3 years. Within that short amount of time, we've probably had about 20 new initiatives spring up, new initiatives and organizations, whether that is being named the TechStars City. Alabama Power has leaned in and created an energy tech accelerator with TechStars, in keeping with Brad Feld, obviously he being partner of the Founder Group. We actually hosted one of his partners, Chris Moody, in 2018 with Steve Case when we were named the Rise of the Rest City. And that really gave Chris an inside look at what we were trying to do here in Birmingham. And so just a simple premise to him was, well, how do we convince some of your portfolio companies to expand to Birmingham, or even best case scenario, move to Birmingham? And from that sprung an initiative called Birmingham Bound. And to date, we've attracted about 16 startups to either expand or relocate to Birmingham, organizations that never would have given us a look to begin with. The leader of that initiative, Brittany Somerville, she is the VP of Community Engagement at Shipt, which is about 6 years old now. So if you're familiar with the grocery delivery service, Shipt was acquired in December 2017 by Target for $550 million, the largest exit in the state. A little time before that, we had the youngest mayor in modern history, Randall Woodfin, elected. He is a good friend of mine as well as Waymond's. A few months before that, you had the selection of a dynamic, powerful superintendent, Dr. Lisa Herring. Larry, we have not forgiven Atlanta for stealing Lisa Herring away, but she's doing remarkable things over in Atlanta, obviously. But
all comes around. All comes around.
Well, we just plucked the new CEO of our chamber, the Birmingham Business Alliance, from you guys as well. He was over at DeKalb Chamber. So yeah, tit for tat. But all that to say is that so much was happening in a short amount of time. But it was those previous relationships and those initial efforts to build that collaborative muscle that really allowed us to strike while the iron is hot when we had the chance to do that serious engagement with Apple, like I said, which has now led to the education farm. I mean, even more engagements from that. So we just had to make sure that when those opportunities struck, we were able to lean in and do something powerful and dynamic. So, yeah.
Thank you, Dion. And actually, you know, that was actually a perfect segue into my next question. You went over a lot of the different initiatives that you guys have started or done. And I was curious for the different areas for each of you, what has been the main initiative that's really gotten you guys going or really drawn a lot of attention to your area?
I'll start. So the first meeting I had with our board of directors 4 years ago when I took this role, one of the things I felt was important to agree on was a metric that we could use to track our success. And that could have been lots of different things, but what we agreed on was the size of the tech workforce. So there's a number of different things that we're involved with, but the one that we spend the most time and the most effort with is workforce development and growing our tech workforce. So that takes many different forms. That's K through 12 programming and initiatives. That's working with all 23 of our colleges and universities. That's working with non-traditional education code camps. There's a variety of different code camps, Todd, here in the area. We launched a tech apprenticeship program 2.5 years ago with the specific goal of trying to provide opportunities to the underemployed in our city so that they could get skilled up in a very quick way and move into the tech workforce. And that also includes trying to ratchet up and continue to ratchet up the profile of Nashville as a tech hub and to advertise outside of Nashville to try and recruit people in. So it's all of those efforts, but all to the end of trying to grow the brain trust and grow the workforce that exists here.
It's a kind of a tough one to answer, and to put it into one, Nikki, it's because at TAG, we are different things to different people. But what we are to a Fortune 500 company is different than what we are to a small and medium-sized business, which is different to an individual or a startup company. And we don't try to be everything to everyone, but there is something, sometimes I describe it like a buffet. We set the table and walk away hungry. It's on you. But there's lots to do through the connectivity that we do things. We have historically been known as the place that brings the community together. At one time, we were sort of the umbrella organization. Now other organizations have popped up. Describe it as with success comes competition. And whether it be within the market or actually a lot of people now are coming to Atlanta especially. And, I like to say we make it look easy. So they think that they can come in here with stand up an event and make a little money and then run again. And they find that challenging as well. But all of these things are extremely important. So what we do from our mission driven point of view and what people know us for is our high school internships that we do focusing on STEM education and drawing the pathway to STEM education. If people want a college intern, they know where to find them. We're really trying to fill that longer pipeline and make sure that people get into that. Eighth grade is a milestone where women tend to choose whether or not they will go into a STEM related curriculum or not. And so they opt out for a lot of poor reasons. A lot of times they don't see anybody that mentors them or looks like them, either by gender or by ethnicity, or they just, it's not cool to be smart. And so we're trying to stem that as well and help catch people at that milestone so that they can see these great careers that are available to them as well. So that's one area. We also do scholarships, and we do that through our TAG Education Collaborative, which is our 501c3. People know us for our events. We do about 300 events a year, whether it be sort of the meetup style or through our 23 societies, all the way up to, FinTech South, which is a regional event. It's actually a national, and we went global this year since we didn't have borders. Last 2 years, we've rented out Mercedes-Benz Stadium and filled that whole, the field and all of that with about 1,500 people. So we went north of that this year in a virtual event because we thought about what is it that we don't have borders. We don't have a physical environment. People don't have to fly in and get hotels. So we had 60 hours of content, 300 speakers from all over the world, and it was a phenomenal event. So there's that large spectrum of what we're known for. And then also for policy. We're very much advocating down at the state legislature, making sure that we have good policies. I'm very proud of our participation with the state government that by 2025, every public high school in Georgia will be offering computer programming. And so, and legislation we passed a couple of years before that was that you can a student can utilize computer program as an equivalent to foreign language. And so that was something that I think makes us very progressive and forward thinking when it goes back to STEM. Lately, we joined the Lieutenant Governor and his initiative to really increase us as a global innovation hub, and his mantra, make Georgia the technology state of the East Coast. And he stood up the Partnership for Inclusive Innovation. And so that's well on the way, and we're looking forward to be part of that. The rest is really, or the other thing that I'll mention real quick is now we've stood up another organization called the National Technology Security Coalition, which is a national model of CISOs. And it's really advocating to the federal government policies that are important to the chief information security officers at private organizations. So great Georgia companies like NCR and Aflac and Synovus are a part of it. But thank JP Morgan, thank Microsoft, thank Johnson & Johnson. And we're really proud of this new advisory council that we just stood up with the Department of Homeland Security, or we're standing up. It's in the Senate right now, already passed the House. And to create a private sector advisory council to the Cyber and Infrastructure Security Agency within DHS. So all of these things come together to create a unique perspective about what we're doing to, again, to drive innovation and the importance of innovation as it becomes ubiquitous. What's a tech company anymore? Every company is a tech company.
Exactly. Thank you for that, Larry. And I love, the fact with the, like you were saying, is you could take a foreign language or programming in the schools. I think that's actually very progressive, and that's awesome. You guys are doing that in that area. Joe, did you want to add anything there as well?
Yes, I've been afraid to speak again at risk of my internet going out. And I would actually pivot that to some of the original question. Our leading initiatives, I think, that have really brought together our members and our community here have been the efforts that we, for example, are focusing on this weekend, our hackathon. Those type of events and that type of collaboration really did not exist in our area before our organization came to be. So you had a lot of efforts that were siloed. You had a lot of initiatives that were kind of going their own way with blinders on, not really seeing things around. And there wasn't really an effort at a macro level to bring a lot of those things together. So when we started working, one of the things we focused on first, and I think that's something that we do very well comparatively to some of the other tech organizations in North America, is focus on the community, see what these meetup organizers need. What could we do to be able to be a source of information and aggregation to our tech community. And we focus a lot on that because we see the value, and our board sees the value as well. So if you're a technology executive, like those that sit on our board, you see the value of the community work that we do, like hackathons, like meetups, like just conversations like this, because it all factors back into building a vibrancy in that tech community that people want to be a part of. Garnered in person, it was easier. Virtually, it's been a little bit more difficult and odd, I would say the least. And Nikki and Monica and our team have been knocking it out nonetheless. But it has set us aside to say, hey, maybe the work that we're doing is not so siloed just to a certain geographic area as much anymore. And that's been more of a realization as we've gone through this year. And I would say, and I was just talking to somebody else about this yesterday in a different region. Everybody does their community initiatives differently. Every region has its own pros and cons. For us in South Florida, we're very spread out, very diverse. For somebody like Dion, you have a traditional city and everything is kind of in the city and kind of irradiates out from one point. And Atlanta is a massive metropolitan area. I mean, everybody has their own geographic circumstances and their own companies that really drive that. But for us, I would say that's been our key component of driving our organization forward, and will continue to be for the next few years.
Very good. Thank you all for those answers. It's kind of really cool just to see, you know, from you all's point of view, how each of the organizations differ and what everybody's doing. I did want to ask the question, which I think it might have been Dion that referenced this in the beginning, is Silicon Valley. I know that we are trying to learn from and separate ourselves as much as we can to build our own tech hubs. So I'm curious is, you know, Silicon Valley has been recognized as one of the, you know, top places to go to for tech and tech startups. But this seems to be slowly changing as different tech hubs are emerging across the country. What do you think that they did so well in the beginning that really established them as a tech hub that separated themselves? And then what do you think that we can learn from them, or what do you think we have learned and we're starting to implement in our own areas?
You know, Silicon Valley's been successful. I'm reluctant to even jump on because I just don't like the comparison anymore. I don't even think that we should frame ourselves that way. We're different. We're going to be different. We don't want to be Silicon Valley. If you want to look at the historic perspective, I mean, Silicon Valley started, I mean, it was all driven by the private sector. It was great IP that was commercialized, that created great companies that, you know, some exist today and some don't. But it was really at the forefront of, you know, networking of computers and other things. They had a great university there that was able to provide some of that connectivity. But it was that. I mean, it was I forgot his name, but it was a journalist who actually dubbed it Silicon Valley. And so I mean, they've been extremely important and a driver of innovation. But again, it's the private sector. So I'll go back to what can we do is, one, make sure that private sector companies can thrive. That we're making sure that we have a great business climate for them to thrive, and that we start to generate the inclusive nature. You know, I think that some of the things that are important to us as we think about it is the great diversity that we have here, and the inclusivity of it really does drive innovation. So we think about it in different perspectives. Joseph, as you know, I was down in Miami for a few years, and inclusiveness there has a different flavor than what it does here in Atlanta. You know, it's extremely important in both sense, and those are things that we can do. One thing, I'm a Southerner, so grew up in the Southeast. Sometimes I say that we're a victim of our own Southern sensibilities, meaning we tend to be understated. Now, that old adage of just a Southern lawyer, about to eat your lunch, but I'm just a Southern lawyer. So we don't boast a lot. So then you go back and forth, should we be boasting about what we do more? Yeah, maybe. I think we can sell ourselves. But people are coming here and they're coming to the Southeast. Venture Atlanta, and it's got the Atlanta name on it, but we really looked at it regionally and now nationally. It's becoming one of the most important conferences for connecting startups with capital in the country. And I think that's our, you know, our slow, it might be slow or it might appear slow, but our steady cadence of building world-class companies is important to us. So, you know, we are in the Southeast, we are a global hub of innovation. I just think that we can sit at that table with confidence. Always work to do, and we always want to do better. But I like forums like this because that connectivity is important to all of us.
Nikki, I'll jump in. I think Larry made a great point about in answering the Silicon Valley piece and mentioning corporations and private sector driven. And I would say that's been one of the things that we have seen, you know, in Birmingham that has began to shift the tide. It's been the realization of our corporate entities that the level of activity that they actually have to have in building, you know, a tech ecosystem. And so when you start thinking about, you know, our utility company, as with all the ones, especially across the Southeast, you know, are heavily, you know, engaged in the economic development space. You know, for us, we think about Alabama Power, but, you know, a lot of the initiatives that are being pumped into the technology ecosystem are being, you know, spurred along and driven by those entities realizing that, you know, you have to have that type of engagement and involvement and connecting with those startups and giving them opportunities, you know, to be in your supply chain and all those different things. But that truly creates an opportunity in Birmingham. And then I think another part where we can, you know, and maybe it's not necessarily the lesson that they got right, but it's been mentioned several times in here, and I think it is the lesson that we could get right, and this is focus on equity and inclusivity. Larry mentioned what initiative that they were having to make Atlanta the inclusive technology ecosystem of the Southeast. Birmingham is similar in that same space. From a board position for us as an organization, one of the things that as we saw a shift in changing of executive directors and people to bring on to the board, there's been an intentional focus on making sure that TechBirmingham looks like the community that it serves. And in Birmingham, that's a city that's 70 to 75% African American. Our previous executive director, was female, Jennifer Shellum. So, we've been trying to balance this piece of making sure that if that eighth grader, whether that eighth grader is a African American male or a female, a white female, that they see themselves represented in this space. So I think that's a key component that the South, by virtue that it tends to be a little bit, especially from when you pull in Miami and Florida, it tends to be slightly more diverse in some aspects. And so you have a unique opportunity to see what Silicon Valley didn't get right, maybe build off of the community that they were able to create, but get it right in the sense of this focus on equity and inclusion.
It's a very good point, Waymond. And actually, that kind of leads into something else I was going to ask also is just as, I think with the pandemic, one thing as even though it's overall very a negative situation, that has been a positive that comes out this for our region is that there's actually a lot of talent that's moving to the Southeast. I mean, I don't know, what the stats look like for your all areas, but I know for South Florida, there's been some recent articles out there saying there's almost 1,000 people a day from just the Northeast that are moving to South Florida. So there's definitely an influx of people. And I'm curious, what are some of the ways that we can better attract and retain some of our technical talent, especially on the diversity forefront? Because I think, like you said, Waymond, we are a much more diverse area than a lot of areas across the country. So I'm just curious, what are some ways that we can attract talent, attract the companies? I mean, we're already seeing just some people in general that are moving here.
I'll jump back in. I mean, definitely from the company perspective, Dion hit on it earlier. This initiative that we've started in Birmingham called Bound, the intentionality. And so we've got, we're really shifting our entire economic development mindset, as a community and the entire system, knowing that, you're only going to have so many buffaloes, huge companies that you can, go out, recruit, and shoot and bring in. The new strategy for a new century has to be a much more rifle approach. And it's also one where you have to be growing more of your own companies internally. And so, intentional efforts, to reach out, to startups, highlight, your city and things. I know one of the first things that I saw when I started in a previous role at the Birmingham Business Alliance was the Work IT Nashville initiative that they had launched several years ago. Work at Nashville. I think the more that entities like ours that we represent are engaged and involved in active, recruitment of talent, active recruitment of, startups, and highlighting and enhancing what your community has to offer. We're going to put ourselves in a position as a region to capture, more of that talent. And it's been said a few times on here. I mean, there are, just as, the organization that I now run with Apple's presence, that's not stopping. You start to see this wave of announcements, especially, in Atlanta and around HBCUs and, all these different companies that are, saying, hey, we're going to engage here now. We're going to engage here now. I think, we have to make sure that we recognize actually what the assets that we have, that now people are really starting to kind of come in and drive and say, hey, we want to be here, and boast and brag about that a little bit more, so that we're really intentional about pulling things in. I think one of the things that we could do as a collective region is probably, market this entire thing, together. a coordinated effort when you're talking about, what's going on in the Southeast between Nashville, Birmingham, Atlanta, Florida, and have an effort of, thinking about a regional economy, that speaks, volumes, for those larger companies and entities of where people want to come to.
And Waymond, not to put you back on the spot, I didn't know if there was anything else that you wanted to offer up around the initiative that you kicked off at the BBA on Board Birmingham. And what got me thinking about that was recent conversations around how a lot of young tech talent, they don't really feel connected to the city that they're in once they arrive. And that might just be a reflection of Birmingham's nascency on this scene. But I think, and I mean, hell, the Ed Farm is a perfect representation of this, right? The ability to attract people through unique initiatives. So Venture for America, I'm sure a lot of you all are familiar with. Birmingham is a VFA city. I think we brought in the largest class this year, about 30 cohort members. I believe, Waymond, you've hired 4 of them. And so, kind of going back in the 3 years this has started, figuring out, well, what is it that they need to really feel plugged in and to feel that they have an understanding of the city and on ramps to not just come in at an entry level, but to actually level up as well, to move to middle and senior tiers of management and leadership. So anyway, I don't know if there was anything that you wanted to offer up around that, any insights, but I know that onboard initiative was a powerful plan to really close that gap between folks coming and then folks staying.
Yeah, no, and I'll be really brief on it, but the communities, focusing on the actual talent attraction. As I mentioned earlier, I think, some of the things that, Nashville started out doing with that. Atlanta has Choose ATL. We've got, On Board Birmingham. I know there are probably some things that are occurring in some of the cities in Miami, but those, organizations like this really plugging into those types of efforts where you've got, whether it's the economic development entity or the chamber, that's actively marketing and focused on selling the city to that talent and telling the story, has shown a lot of success in how you actually get that talent to actually, one, stay and not leave once they get there, but then also be able to do the active recruitment, for them to come there.
Yeah, in our case, we're actually taking the lead in the region to tell the story of why to aggressively and intentionally tell the stories of the cool, innovative stuff that's going on, not only companies, but individuals, so that as people begin their search for, I got to get out of here, where else could I be and grow a tech career, that Nashville and these stories are going to be at the top of the hits. The chamber's focused on advertising the cultural aspects of why somebody would want to come to, and the educational aspects. We're focusing on tech and innovation and telling that story. And, so you mentioned, Waylon, Waymond, you mentioned the Work It initiative from 10 years ago. I could tell you what worked and what didn't work about that. We are kind of launching a new and different initiative to do a similar thing, but with lessons learned, hopefully we'll do a better job of really highlighting the benefits of Nashville as a community for coming. One of the things that we learned a few years back, as some of our member companies would try to recruit from Seattle or San Francisco in, a lot of times the objections were, oh, that sounds like a great opportunity, but if that doesn't work out, where else am I going to be able to find work? And there's nothing you can do fast to solve that problem. That just takes a little bit of time, and we don't get those now. We don't get those kinds of objections because there's so many different opportunities. But another part of that is just intentionally telling the story and making sure people know that there's companies, to Larry's point, one of the things of, our Southern nature is we don't brag. We So we take it upon ourselves as an organization to brag for our member companies and to talk about what's going on and the good things that are happening. The one last point, and I'll shut up. The Business Journal just this week launched a new feature called Tech Bites. So it's every week. It's an entire section in the journal that's going to be focused on tech-focused news, because according to their quote, there's so much news going on that we just needed a way to pull it all together and to share it with everybody. In 2017, just 3 short years ago, they referred to the tech sector in Nashville as fledgling. And we invited the publisher into the office and said, let us explain what's going on here. And that started a very intentional relationship with not only them, but the Tennessean and the Post and others to really try and feed them stories and to get the news going. There's probably more activity than there was 3 years ago, but a lot of it is just, we're doing a better job of telling the stories. And that's what I would encourage all of you to do.
Yeah, and I'd love to chime in on this one too. I'm obviously trying to give everyone else more time to chat here today, but I really think what drives the tech community and the tech industry wherever we are is how that message is being proliferated. How are we unifying our tech community members? How are we getting our partners on the same page to say, hey, here's the storyline. Here's what we need to talk about. And I think, Larry, being in South Florida for some time, could agree that, we haven't always been on the same page here, so, and that's going to be difficult for, I think, us in South Florida of getting on the same page and making sure we have more of a unified approach and message. But, when we talk about Southeast as a region, Brian and I have some mutual members. When I went to Nashville this summer, we actually were able to visit one of our mutual members who just opened up an office there. Atlanta as well, we have some mutual members, between our organizations. So I see that as a value, because you can hop on a plane here in Palm Beach and get to either one of those communities, those cities, really quick and really easily. And, whatever talent maybe we don't have here, maybe they have it in Nashville, like healthcare talent, for example. Maybe they have that in Atlanta, like fintech. And, Birmingham, there's a lot of connections here that we're seeing, that I think that if we look at the Southeast as a region, as a greater region, right, we have our individual local regions, there's going to be more and more value to say, hey, don't just come to South Florida, but look at South Florida in Nashville, look at South Florida in Birmingham, look at South Florida in Atlanta, and see the differences there by setting up, multiple operations if you're that big, and how all those things come together. And that is going to be more economical 10 times over than Silicon Valley by far. And, you'll probably realize, hey, you know what? I can go to the beach in Florida. I can go to the outdoors in wherever else and go hiking. And that's going to always, I think, win out over traffic in California.
Judge, you make a good point, and it should take a second to talk about our national organization, Techno. Techno is the National Association of Technology Associations. Techno Association. Which many of us are members, and if you're not, I would encourage you to look at it. But it really does bring that connectivity across the country of what we're doing. So it's everything from sharing best practices and what we can do, but it also creates this type of a network that enables things like this forum, because we know each other now, and we can get connected and we can visit each other and look at those commonalities that we have. And just to the second point, Joseph, what you were mentioning, I also ran economic development for the state of Washington for 10 years, based out of Seattle. And in the Southeast, we focus a whole lot of our economic development initiatives on recruitment. But, if you look at certain markets, we talked about Silicon Valley earlier, but I'll pick on Seattle right now. Nobody recruited Boeing, nobody recruited Microsoft, nobody recruited Starbucks, nobody recruited Amazon, nobody recruited Expedia, and nobody recruited Costco. We can keep going down the list. they all grew up there organically. And I think that's one of the unique perspectives that we have of really growing organically companies. And the trick is, how do we grow them so that they can be globally dominant? A lot of times, somebody, sells for, a few $100 million, and they live pretty well in the South. So, you can't blame them at one time, but really being able to grow these large enterprises and keep them dominant here, I think is one of the challenges that we have. Something that really gets me excited.
Thank you for that. And I actually wanted to just throw out one of the comments that were here in the chat and Zoom, because when we were talking about, attracting the tech talent to our areas, I think one strong point that Ryan Poole made, is he's a local startup here in South Florida, is that the early stage tech startups all need capital. And if communities want companies to stay and attract more tech to our communities, the cities need to engage financially. I'm sure that a lot of areas across the country have this issue. I know in South Florida we do as well, is that we have so many great tech startups that start here and are known for starting here in South Florida, but because they can't get financing, they go somewhere else. So I think that is definitely a major factor, and I'm sure we could have a whole nother panel discussion on that. But yes, is that, the different funding groups need to support their own local communities, because a lot of times too, the people that are, showing, giving them funding and putting some backing behind these local companies are often not from here. So then they're not putting the money back into our local communities. So thank you for that also, Ryan. That was a really good point. We've got just a couple minutes left, and I know I still have like 8 questions on my list. So I'm just going to ask something that's been really important to us locally here that we've been really trying to push in South Florida is diversity inclusion issues. So I fully believe that building an inclusive tech hub requires intentionality, is the best word that I could think of. And the reason that tech hubs are vibrant is because of the people. I know that a lot of you mentioned the people, the community, and everybody that make up our tech community. So what are each of your organizations doing to focus on building a tech community that includes underrepresented and marginalized groups?
We're doing several things. We've had a diversity and inclusion society for a long time, and making sure that they have connectivity. We've launched a task force at the board looking at it from a leadership point of view, to make sure that we are looking at social justice and equality. We're setting a set of principles, and we're doing an event that we do called Converge. Inclusion drives innovation. It takes that diversity and inclusion theme to the next level. This will be the second time, and we'll be releasing our agenda, so that this is not just an event or one stop in the year, but we're actually integrating it throughout. So we're looking at it as, what are we doing at the executive committee, the board of directors, the board of directors, our society leadership, so we call that our leadership council, then into our broader membership, and then how we connect to the community. So there's a lot of work to do. We set a principle right now that we do look at inclusiveness as the broader definition, and it can be LGBTQ. But right now, our focus is about systemic racism. What can we do to promote our Black and brown brothers? Black lives do matter. And it's very important to us, and those are principles that we're setting, and we'll be continuing to drive that agenda. And again, making sure that our organization is reflective and looks like membership we serve.
Very good.
Yeah, just quickly adding. So I've been in this role just shy of 3 years now. Quite honestly, we did not have a lot of diverse representation on the board. So one of my first actions was to start to reverse that. And as Waymond alluded to earlier, make sure our body was reflective of the entire community. We have a long way to go, but I am very pleased with the progress that we've made on that front. Another thing is to really lean in to our peer network and make sure that we are respectfully engaged with those communities. We are starting to roll out something new for us, peer groups, one of which will be LGBTQ focused. We are having conversations around elevating Blacks in tech, just basically any underrepresented and underestimated population, figuring out how we need to lean in. I think it also goes to the larger, what I like to call the cradle to career pipeline. If we want to see more representation, we have to recognize that it starts much earlier. And so that's why I'm super excited about the Ed Farm initiative. You know, when we had a chance to go on that trip that really helped kick this off, that was April 2018. Waymond, funny enough, was actually on that trip in his previous role. But now here we are, officially a year and some change later. We are in 13 city schools. Birmingham is 99% Black when it comes to our student population. And so we were able to create the expectation that it's not just about offering coding education on the weekends or on the summer, but it is something that they should be completely immersed in. They should have the opportunity to engage in it from sun up to sundown. And so I think we're going to see generational impacts from this effort years down the road.
Ryan or Joe, did you want to add anything? Because I know we're right at time right now, so I wanted to make sure you guys were able to answer that if you wanted.
No, I would just like to, thank everybody who's been on the call, and thank you for everyone's leadership. I think I've leaned on each of the other CEOs who are on this call for advice from time to time. Either that be over a beer, over lunch, or over Zoom. And for each one of the folks here, for Brian, for Dion, for Larry, they represent a really impactful set of technology companies and technology leaders. And it's really special to see the work that they do and the work that they represent, because that's what we're trying to do here in South Florida, is really drive that forward and drive that message forward that, hey, we can do this together. We can really make our community into something special, and they're doing it in their city. So I wanted to thank them for joining in the conversation this morning.
Thanks for having us, and kudos to you, Joe. I mean, what you've done in a short amount of years there is pretty incredible. So very impressive work.
Thank
All
you
team
all
effort.
so much. Oh, what were you going to say, Joe? Sorry.
All a team effort.
Yes. Yes. And thank you, everybody, because I know everybody's got 9 o'clock meetings, so we're just past 9. So I just wanted to say thank you for everybody coming bright and early, all of the insights. And again, I'm sure we could have gone on for another hour, but thank you all for showing up this morning.
Bye.
Thanks,
you.
everybody.